Capitalism is once again on the hot seat, and I think a lot of people that are around my age have a really negative view about what capitalism is. Half of them, I feel, don't even truly know. If you were to give them the definition, they would say, yeah, that's what socialism sounds like. But what I really want to ask today is, well, is capitalism good? Is it bad? Has it cured certain things? Has it done more harm than good? So we're going to walk through that. But I always find it very funny how the people that have the most negative view of capitalism, they often live in a very capitalistic society. So for example, here in America, there's so many people that tout about how socialism or communism would be better. But I always ask and say, well, if it's so much better, why don't you just try and pick up your stuff and move to a country that adopted those particular policies? It's always very interesting to hear their response. So in order to talk about maybe what has capitalism done for our society, has it done good? Has it done bad? What's it done for our income, poverty, right? Things like that. I had to pull up an article. So this particular article, it's OECD Better Life Index, if you want to check it out on your own. But if you haven't already done so, with the reading in that highlighted text, it reads, the United States ranks at the top in housing, ranks above average in income and wealth, health status, jobs and earnings, education, skills, personal security, subjective well-being, environmental quality, social connections, and civic engagement. The last sentence reads, it ranks below average in work-life balance. And I guess we'll start with that, the work-life balance. I would absolutely say that here in America, work really is kind of put at the top of the totem pole. And you could argue, you could say, it shouldn't be, family should be first. And, I could absolutely agree with you on that. But hard work is something that really is desired in America, and it's looked up to by many people. So I think that's why you have that particular stat in there. It's still something worth noting, but that's my sort of view on it. But in regards to the other things that I just rattled off, what this website will do, I'll scroll down for you. And let's see, there it is. It says compared to, and you can pick a country. So there's a whole list of countries. Like you do Canada, you do the United Kingdom, and it'll actually give you a really good idea about where the US ranks in those particular categories, right? Housing, income, all those things. So while it's absolutely true that in other countries, there are, according to this website at least, some better aspects about life. It might be housing. A big one was education. And I will say it's very hard to educate 300 some odd million people, especially when you compare it to a country that might only have 10 million people. But it's still absolutely worth noting that in other countries, there are aspects that are considered to be better. But overall, the United States is still considered to be one of the top countries because in total, right, including all these particular topics, America on average is ruled to be the most desirable place. And I think our immigration sort of speaks volumes on that because every year, the one country that constantly has people applying for citizenship and applying for visas is the USA. You can't really speak for other countries, and I know there's immigration that goes on in other areas, so I'm not trying to say that we're the only country that experiences it, but there's a reason why America is seen as that shining light on the hill, and that's because it is still considered to be the land of opportunity. And I would argue that people outside of the US have a better view on the US than people within our country because they actually experience, those people outside of the country actually experience those awful policies that socialism and communism, what they often bring, those unintended consequences. So because they've experienced it firsthand, that's why they have that desire to come to this particular country. Now, I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but you can see within this particular article how it shows that America clearly is doing something right. And I have to attribute, especially when it comes to income and wealth, that has to be contributed to how we've embraced capitalism over the past few hundred years. And another thing that I wanted to mention, it doesn't specifically state this in this article, but it's my personal opinion. So you're more than welcome to disagree with it if you choose to do so. And you can let me know in the comments. But I think here in America, based on the economic society that we have built up, we have the ability in this country to leg up. And what I mean by that is you might start in a lower socioeconomic class, but if you truly want to rise to the occasion and lift yourself out of that particular class, within your lifetime, you can absolutely jump economic classes. When it comes to being an entrepreneur, an investor, really just, it could even just be a hard worker and a saver. There's no limit as to what a person can do if they have the heart, the guts, and the desire to lift themselves up into a new socioeconomic class. Doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't even matter your education level, okay? Because there's plenty of people that you can look up to that are considered to be successful in our society, and they didn't even finish college. Some of them didn't even finish high school. Side note, I was actually watching, before making this video, there's a new show called Undercover Billionaires, I think it's what it's called. And the one guy that they have on there now, he was explaining how he was someone who has no business being a billionaire because of his upbringing. He said both his parents were alcoholics. He didn't graduate from high school, I think he said, or he barely did. He had such a low GPA. He said when he was 14 or 15 years old, he got a girl pregnant. So by given those sort of standards and what life threw at him, he by no means should he be someone that is as successful as he is today, but he had the heart, the guts, the desire to do so. And the reason also is because America enabled him. If he was living in another country, you can't necessarily say he would have the same life that he has now. So one of the questions that I've had in not only the beginning of the video, but also really kind of throughout my time getting involved in politics is, what has capitalism done for us? What has capitalism cured? And what I'll kind of point to is, think about when your mom and dad was growing up, even your grandparents. You can think about all things that we have today that maybe back then it was considered a luxury item. So for example, and I know phones necessarily weren't around when our parents were growing up, okay? But I can remember, I think I was in maybe middle school when the first iPhone came out, and needless to say, you had to be someone that was pretty important and pretty wealthy to even put the investment up to try and get yourself an iPhone. And you could say the same for computers, laptops, cars, TVs. I mean, look at this. I'm a guy on the internet. I'm recording this on a webcam, and I have a pretty decent microphone here. I think the audio comes through okay. Do you think a microphone 50 years ago would be something that I would necessarily be able to afford? I think only if you were someone that was in radio or a talk show, you could afford something like that. But the idea that over time, the technology and the innovation, because of our capitalistic society, it's lowered the cost of all these particular items. These entrepreneurs, they found a way to lower prices so that we, and again, I'm holding up my cell phone, okay, because 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't be able to afford this particular phone. But now, because I believe of capitalism, it's found a way for us to lower those prices, right? The lower cost of labor has enabled us to make things more affordable for all people. And that goes for poorer people as well. Another thing I wanted to talk about was that it is still estimated that around the world, there are 600 million people plus, okay? That's potentially even more than 600 million people live on less than $2 a day. So I understand that in America, right, and it could be due to capitalism, maybe it's not due to capitalism, but we still have poverty here. But are people in America living on less than $2 a day? The answer is obviously no. The poverty line in America, for an individual person, I checked before the video, is a little bit under $13,000. So you could absolutely argue, you could say, well, your quality of life is going to be no good. You know, you got to understand people are going to be making $50, $60, $100,000. I'm not trying to compare those particular incomes, but when in comparison to the poverty line around the world, if you're making $12,000 in America, you're living far better than anyone else in the entire world based on their particular poverty line. You're not living on $2 a day. So often, people that are still below the poverty line, they still have some sort of a cell phone. They often are still going to have some sort of shelter. They're probably going to have a TV, a place to sleep, a place to bathe. They might even potentially have a car, okay? Because cars, when you used vehicles, right, they can absolutely, you can pick some up for like $1,500. So, has capitalism cured certain things? I would absolutely say yes. Does it mean that we're perfect the way we are and that there's nothing we can do to try and put money in the hands of more people? Believe it or not, I have actually done a video just the other day. I'll link it to the top of this particular video and in the description if you want to check it out. I still think there's plenty of things that we can do in our country to help more people have more wealth. I'm not into the big wealth redistribution or changing our capitalistic society into a socialist or a communist place. That's definitely no. But I still think there are some sort of strides we can make so that we can improve everybody's life here in America. And then once we do that, then hey, if somebody wants to help out the rest of the world, be my guest. Capitalism really has a bad taste in everyone's mouth right now because people say, hey, every 8 to 10 years, these companies that make billions of dollars in profit need a bailout from the government. And all of our tax money goes to them, and we never get to see a dime of it. And I'd agree with you. I'd say, hey, you know what? I don't think big companies should get any sort of bailout money. I'll definitely cover that in a video in the future. But what people misunderstand is that's not capitalism. And I see a lot of people that are pro-socialist or pro-communism, they try and persuade people, they try to manipulate people to say, yeah, that's what capitalism is, and that's evil. We don't want that. And unfortunately, they bring a lot of people to their side. So what I want to do right now is briefly walk through why we don't have capitalism in our society today. There's 4 elements of capitalism. You have the freedom to buy, the freedom to try, and the freedom to sell. And this is obviously legal items I'm talking about. So again, freedom to buy, freedom to sell, and then the freedom to try. You know what the last element is that we're missing today? The freedom to fail. We need to start letting companies fail. And by companies, I mean big companies like corporations. We have to allow them to fail. Because if those companies fail, one, it's going to allow the smaller companies to thrive because they're going to be the ones to have to pick up the slack. They're going to be the ones to pick up the business when those big corporations fail. But then the next thing is now companies are going to have to manage themselves better. And they're not going to be able to look back to the government to say, hey, we need money. You have to bail us out. So people are going to become more responsible. And then you will have a true form of capitalism where everybody has the same playing field, no matter the size of your business. So let me know what you thought about today's video. I'm someone who is a big believer in capitalism. It's something that I'm actively using to bring myself and my family to that next level on the socioeconomic ladder. So you can let me know, is capitalism something that you love about America? Is it something that you want to see go? Do you think there needs to be a perfect mix between capitalism and socialism and government programs, whatever, you name it, because this is the place where you can actively talk about your opinions and you're not going to get shouted out. On that note, it's almost the new year, so I'm wishing everyone a happy and healthy new year. There will be a new video out tomorrow. And as always, I appreciate you checking out the channel, and I hope you'll consider checking out some more videos again sometime soon.